The docking bay at Outpost 9 Beta smelled like ozone, burnt coffee, and stress. I was elbow-deep in a crate of malfunctioning thermals, trying to coax a stubborn scanner to register cargo from the Yeltri sector when the voice of Commander Trask barked through the comms. "Mercer, eyes down, mouth shut. The Valkera are inbound." Great. Just great. Everyone on the bay floor knew the rules. Don't look at them. Don't talk to them, and for the love of Earth, don't flirt. I'd never even seen a Valkera before. Only heard stories. 7-foot-tall warriors with armor, like liquid shadow, eyes like twin suns, and a cultural fondness for duels and dismemberment. Naturally, my first instinct was to do exactly the opposite of what I was told. Her ship descended like a thundercloud given form, black, sleek, humming with energy. The bay lights dimmed as it landed. The loading crew fell silent. Then the ramp hissed open, and she stepped out, Zelana, first blade of the Valkera Empire. She moved like a blade drawn slow, deliberate, sharp, impossible not to notice. Her armor was obsidian black, etched with blood-red glyphs that pulsed faintly. Her visor reflected the light in ways that made her eyes seem to burn behind it. White hair was braided down her back like a war banner, glimmering faintly with bioluminescence. I froze. Everyone did. I wasn't supposed to be in her path, but fate, bad planning, or maybe the universe's cruel sense of humor had planted me directly in front of her landing ramp. Cargo manifest still clutched in my sweaty hands. She stopped in front of me, towering over my 5'10" earthborn awkwardness, then tilted her head slightly. "Human," she said. I looked up. Her voice was smoke and thunder. I felt it in my ribs. That's me, Jake Mercer. Earth Fleet Logistics. Part-time box wrangler. Full-time charming rogue. I winced the moment the words left my mouth. Her head tilted further. The visor hissed and lifted, revealing golden eyes that narrowed like a predator assessing prey. "You were the shipment handler for Drop.7. She stated not a question. "Yes, ma'am," I said, trying to keep my voice steady. "All in spec. Labeled, sorted, customs forms even signed." She stared at me like she was peeling my atoms apart with her gaze. "Charming," she repeated slowly. Now most people would have stopped there. But I, Jake Mercer, stress-flirting professional, decided to die heroically on the hill of bad. "Timing. Double quotes. Well, you know," I said with a nervous shrug. "Humans use humor to diffuse tension. And also, I couldn't help but notice you've got a very tactical lower half, for balance, in combat." Silence. Long, sharp, unrelenting silence. Then she blinked. "Did you just compliment my rear?" "No, I mean yes. But not like that, it was meant as an observation on structure, symmetry, combat efficiency." Her violet skin flushed a darker shade near her cheekbones. I thought maybe I saw the hint of a smirk. Then she slapped me. I flew backward 7 feet into a cargo pallet, knocking over 3 thermal cores and most of my dignity. My back hurt. My ego hurt worse. I groaned, blinking up at the ceiling lights. She approached, boots ringing on the bay floor like a countdown to doom. "Except," she said. I coughed. "Except what?" She gestured to the stunned crew still frozen. "Nearby, you have flirted with me in the presence of witnesses. You have acknowledged the excellence of my form and attempted to initiate dominance through humor. These are the courtship rites of the Valkera." I sat up, dazed. "Wait, what?" "You will report to my war cruiser by nightfall," she said. "Bring your mating documentation. Trial 1 begins at dawn." Then she turned and walked away, leaving silence in her wake. 2 Valkera warriors in matching armor stomped over, picked me up like I was luggage, and started dragging me toward her ship. I barely had time to grab my duffel bag. Somewhere in the haze of shock and bruises, I muttered, I should have just complimented the boots. They woke me up with a war drum the size of my apartment. The room I'd been assigned wasn't a room at all. It was a ceremonial chamber carved from black stone and glowing red crystal. One side had a bath that doubled as a lava pit. The other had a slab that might have been a bed or an execution platform. No windows, no clock. Just glowing glyphs that pulsed every time I got too close. Like the walls were judging me. I'd fallen asleep, correction, passed out still wearing the ceremonial robe they'd forced on me. It was itchy, too short, and stitched with aggressive alien calligraphy. I later learned the phrase scrawled across my chest translated to something between delicate meat and trial snack. Comforting. The door hissed open and 2 Valkera soldiers stepped in, their armor clanking like a thunderstorm in a minefield. One held a spear. The other held a scroll sealed with molten wax. Neither looked particularly amused. Consort, the one with the scroll growled, "The trial of worth begins now. If you die, you will be replaced." Replaced? I asked, struggling to sit up. Efficient mating does not allow for failure. The other added helpfully. They hauled me to my feet and dragged me through a winding corridor that smelled like fire, metal, and the kind of sweat you only get from battle or terrifying misunderstandings. I passed towering statues of long-dead warlords, ornamental weapons the size of shuttlecraft, and at least one wall-sized mural of Zelana decapitating something with 6 heads. We reached a gate. A blast shield slid away, revealing an arena unlike anything I'd ever seen. Massive, circular, carved from volcanic stone and lit by braziers that burned with eerie blue fire. The stands were filled with Valkera warriors towering, armored, and all staring at me, some confused, some hungry-looking, none smiling. "Present the trial candidate," boomed a voice from overhead. The announcer was floating in a sphere of light, surrounded by glyphs and vocal enhancers. Dramatic much? Combatant, Cathruk, Seeker of the Blade, champion of 12 trials. A section of the arena floor split, open with a hiss of steam, and rising from it came a literal monster. Cathruk stood nearly 8 feet tall, all scorched armor and layered muscle. His skin was the color of rusted iron, his teeth filed into sharp points. He carried a war axe that glowed with molten heat, and every step he took made the ground tremble. "Oh hell," I whispered, and facing him, the announcer said, less enthusiastically, "Human male, Jake Mercer. Of Earth." Insulted. The first blade's posterior. The crowd exploded in laughter. I heard war cries, weapon clinks, and someone shouting, "Bleed the flirt." Cathruk stomped toward me. Smoke hissed from vents in his armor. He growled, "Any last words, soft meat?" I stared up at him, barely keeping my knees from betraying me. "Yeah," I said. "I'm not insured for interstellar murder." He blinked, confused, then roared and raised the axe. I did what any self-respecting cargo tech would do. I panicked strategically. I dove sideways. The axe hit the ground with a boom that shook my fillings. I scrambled back, flinging off my sandal. In the process, he came again. I ducked, slipped, accidentally rolled behind him, and somehow some miraculous, physics-defying miracle, he tripped over my discarded flip-flop. The crowd gasped. Cathruk stumbled, windmilled, crashed, face first into a stone column that cracked under the impact. He lay still, groaning, tangled in a tangle of ceremonial banners and what might have been someone's ancestral war. Flag. Silence. Then laughter. Then cheering. I blinked up at the floating announcer. "Trial resolved," he declared. "Human Jake has achieved victory through dishonorable cunning." A pause, which we now declare honorable enough. The arena roared. I was too stunned to move, still on my knees, still wearing the stupid robe. From above, a balcony opened and she entered. Zela na. She wore her armor again, full ceremonial regalia, trimmed in gold and etched with new runes I hadn't seen before. Her white hair was braided tight. She descended the stone stairs slowly, boots ringing with every step. She stopped in front of me, staring down like I was an odd puzzle someone had dared place in her throne room. "You survived," she said. "Technically," I croaked. "You?" "Improvised. You panicked. You won. Also technically." There was the faintest pull at the corner of her lips. Not quite a smile, but something near it. "You are full of surprises," she said. "And bruises. So many bruises." She turned to the crowd and lifted a hand. They bowed, all of them. Even Cathrak, who was now conscious and grinning like he'd just been kissed by fate. "You have passed the first trial," Zelana said. I exhaled in relief. Then she added, "There are 4 more." I looked up, horrified. "Wait first?" She nodded once. "Trial of fire begins at dawn." She turned on her heel and strode away, her cloak flaring behind her like smoke. I slumped to the ground, clutching my side, my pride, and what was left of my sanity. All of this because I complimented her butt. He didn't give me a map. Or instructions, or mercy, just a glowing shard of ore, the size of a cantaloupe and a forge chamber hotter than the inside of a collapsing star. The door slammed shut behind me with a hiss like an angry dragon exhaling. I stood alone in a circular chamber carved from volcanic obsidian, the walls veined with molten red streaks that pulsed like arteries. The ceiling shimmered like liquid heat. Lava poured in neat controlled streams around the perimeter, bubbling and hissing. The air shimmered with pressure. Welcome to the trial of fire. They really meant it. A small pedestal in the center held a Fazzdal forge. Tools lined a rack beside it, tongs, hammers, chisels, all made of Valkeran metal that hummed faintly like it didn't appreciate my weak human fingers touching it. I stared at the ore in my hands. It glowed faintly, like it had a heartbeat. I had never forged anything in my life, unless you count lies on my time logs or excuses for late cargo. Somewhere high above, in a darkened viewing gallery, I felt her presence. Zelana, watching, judging, waiting. A tiny voice echoed through a hidden speaker. Trial parameters. Forge a weapon worthy of the first blade. Completion time until you succeed or combust. I dropped the ore onto the anvil with a clang and stared at it like it might explain itself. "You better come with instructions." It didn't doubt, so I did what humans do best. I winged it. I picked up the hammer. Heavy. Definitely not OSHA approved. I adjusted my stance like I'd seen in Hollowitz, wiped sweat off my forehead, and swung. The hammer bounced. I cursed, shook my stinging hand, and swung again. Sparks flew. One landed in my sleeve. I panicked, flailed, smacked it out, elbowed the tongs off the table and into the lava. Off to a great start, I muttered. I breathed, tried again and again. Each swing a battle against heat and doubt. My muscles ached. My robe stuck to my skin. My hair sizzled every time I leaned too close to the crucible. I talked to myself like a madman. I imagined Zelana up there, silently laughing, already planning which ceremonial wall to hang my incinerated bones on. But hour after hour, through burns and curses and stubborn determination, something began to take shape. Not a masterpiece. Not even symmetrical. It looked like a dagger that had lost a fight with a banana and decided to grow teeth out of spite. But it was a blade. Sort of. I held it up with trembling hands. The chamber went still. Molten flows quieted. The heat faded just slightly. High above, a massive gong sounded once. The door opened. She entered. Zelana stepped through the steam like a myth. Her armor stripped down to ceremonial robes woven from shimmering black and gold. Her hair glowed faintly in the forge light. Her gaze unreadable. She approached me slowly, deliberately, her eyes locked on the blade in my hand. You forged this? She asked. I nodded, still panting. I forged something, technically. She took it from me without ceremony, turned it over. In her hands. Her grip was delicate, but even that made the blade seem like it had purpose. Without a word, she walked to the testing pillar, an iron slab carved with ancient Valkeran glyphs. She raised the blade, then brought it down with a clean arcing. Strike. The block split in two. Silence. Even the lava paused, as if stunned. She turned back to me. It is ugly, she said. Uneven, crude. Ouch, I muttered, but effective, unexpected, defiant. She stepped closer. This blade is a reflection of its maker, she said softly. She held it out to me, hilt first, and I approve. My breath caught. Wait, really? You confuse me, Jake Mercer. I confuse myself. You lack technique, discipline, skill. This feels more like a roast than praise. But, she said, tilting her head, you possess spirit, audacity, fire. Her fingers brushed mine as she passed the blade back. The contact was brief, but electric. She flinched slightly, as if the touch surprised her too. Then she let it linger. You make me laugh, she said. You make me feel things. I have not laughed since I was young, since before I was chosen, since before war became my every breath. She stepped back, the glow of the forge casting dancing shadows across her face. No one survives trial 2. Without training, she said. No one makes me laugh in a forge of fire. Guess I'm just built different, I said. Or stupid. She smiled, actually smiled. Perhaps both. I leaned on the anvil. My body ached, but I couldn't look away from her. Not now. Not after that moment. So, did I pass? She nodded. With burns. With foolishness. With heart. Then she looked toward the far door. It hissed open on cue. Tomorrow, she said, you face the trial of truth. My stomach dropped. Is that like metaphysical? It is the trial that breaks most, she said. Oh. And Jake, she added, her voice softer than I'd ever heard it, bring no blade. Only your truth. She turned and vanished. Into the steam. I stared down at the blade in my hand, lopsided, ugly, burnt, still warm. Somehow. It had cut through more than iron. It had cut into her. There were no guards this time, no horns, no drums, no flaming axes. Just silence, the kind of silence that sinks into your skin, presses on your ribs, and whispers that something important is about to happen, and there's no way to bluff through. The door to the trial of truth opened like a breath being held too long. I stepped into a chamber unlike anything I'd seen on the warship or anywhere else in my life. Glass. Everywhere. The walls were translucent, curved in slow arcs like ripples in water, shimmering with faint starlight. We were near the ship's apex, floating in a dome suspended above the cruiser with nothing but open space and stars on all sides. It was both beautiful and deeply unnerving, like standing in the eye of some ancient god's judgment. No weapons. No torches. No lava or angry lizard people. Just her. Zelana stood at the center of the chamber in ceremonial robes the color of midnight oceans, embroidered with golden threads that shimmered as she moved. Her war braid was undone, her face unpainted. Her posture, less warrior, more woman, still terrifying, still powerful, but softened like a sword set aside, blade facing down. She gestured toward the floor. A circle of cushions had been arranged between us. We sat. She didn't speak. For a long time, neither did I. Then the light dimmed. The walls pulsed faintly, and something ancient whispered inside my skull. Speak your truth, not a voice. Not hers, not mine. But something other, ancient, telepathic. It slid into my brain like ice dipped in oil and crawled. Behind my eyes, I shivered. Zela Nod didn't flinch. This chamber, she said softly, was forged in the age before plasma and warships. It allows. No lies. It listens, judges, remembers. I nodded. Cool, so no pressure. Her gaze didn't waver. We speak in turns. You may go first, or I may. You go, I said quickly. I'm still processing the part where the room judges. She inhaled slowly. When I was 5, she began, her voice low, I was placed in the blade nursery, chosen by bloodline. My mother was the 6th blade, my father, irrelevant. We were not allowed to ask. She stared through me as if, seeing shadows I couldn't. We trained. We bled. We were carved into weapons. Softness was punished. Emotion was weakness. I learned to kill before I learned to swim. She paused. My first mate was assigned to me at 17. We were victorious. In 2 campaigns, he died during the 3rd. I never mourned him. I didn't know how. The air in the room shifted, heavy with something unspoken. I have destroyed worlds, she continued. I have silenced armies with one word, and yet, she looked down. I had never laughed until you. The silence that followed cracked. Something inside me got my turn. I was born on Mars, I said, my voice suddenly too loud. Not the nice part, the underhabs. Cargo district. My mom cleaned solar panels. My dad left when I was 3. Or 6. Depends on who you ask. I swallowed. I wasn't picked for anything. Not Blade Nursery. Not Academy. I flunked out of 2 technical programs before I figured out how to fake certifications just well enough to get cargo clearance. I gave a hollow laugh. I talk. When I'm nervous, I flirt when I'm scared. I make jokes so people don't look too closely and see I'm just terrified all the time. I looked at her. I didn't come here to fight, or survive gladiator trials, or forge banana swords in lava. I definitely didn't come here to fall in love with someone who could break me in half by blinking too hard. She stared at me. I added, but I did. The light in the chamber changed deep gold now, warmer. The air pulsed like a second heartbeat. Zilana stood, then stepped close. Not like a commander. Not like a judge, like someone unsure, vulnerable. She knelt in front of me and placed her hand on my chest, just over my heart. Do you accept me? She asked softly, as I am? As weapon and woman? I nodded. Do you accept me? As idiot, coward, loudmouth, and all? Her fingers tightened slightly. You are mine, Jake Mercer, she whispered, and I fear you. I blinked. Wait, what? You make me feel unarmored, unmeasured. You speak truths I do not know how to carry. I touched her cheek. She didn't pull away. You're not alone in that. The chamber blazed with golden light, engulfing us both in warmth. The glass walls flickered. The dome opened and above us. The stars themselves bowed. The trial of truth was over. We stepped out of the chamber together. This time, the crew didn't bow to her. They bowed to us. Zela not took my hand, not to lead or drag, but to hold. For the first time, you have passed all 3 trials, she said. I stared at our joined hands, dazed. Wait, that was number 3? She nodded. And now? I asked. She looked at me like I was a riddle she'd stopped trying to solve because maybe she didn't want to anymore. Now, she said, we prepare for the mating ceremony. Wait, the what now? She smirked, and I realized, to my absolute horror, I was starting to look forward to it. They gave me 3 options for the mating ceremony outfit. Option 1, Full-body chainmail trimmed with crimson feathers and about as comfortable as hugging a porcupine inside a microwave. Option 2. A shimmering translucent robe that may have once belonged to a curtain from a space opera. It had no seams, no dignity, and glowed whenever I thought impure thoughts. Spoiler alert, it glowed a lot. Option 3 was labeled in Valkeran glyphs. I asked the attendant what it meant. Roughly translated, he said, adjusting his monocle, it means bite me. Naturally, I chose that one. The mating ceremony was held in the central sanctum of the Vior Kai, the Valkera warship that now felt more like a slowly evolving fever dream I was somehow dating. The sanctum was not what I expected. No pews, no candles, no officiant in a funny hat. Instead, a circular chamber with stone columns carved with war histories, a floor of obsidian polished so smooth you could see the stars reflected in it, and at the center an altar flanked by 2 ceremonial pylons shaped like twin blades stabbing into the heavens. Overhead, Valkeran nobles, officers, and warriors filled the balconies, watching in near silence. Tension clung to the air like static. Before a lightning strike, I stood at one end of the circle. Alone, then she entered. Zela na. She wasn't wearing armor. She wore robes of deep violet and gold, edged in steel filament that caught the light like flame. Her hair was braided tight, decorated with iron rings and burning red jewels that marked rank, lineage, and victory. Her expression? Calm, focused, terrifying. She walked like a goddess made flesh, like war wrapped in silk, and she was walking toward me. I swallowed. So, is there a priest? A judge? A cake? There is a ritual keeper, she replied. He died during rehearsal. Sorry? He made a joke about my hips. Unwise. Noted. She stepped into the circle. With me. The crowd hummed with tension. The ceremonial drums started, slow and thunderous. From the upper balconies, a choir chanted ancient vows in Valkeran, something between music and a declaration of war. Zelana turned to face me. Do you, Jake Mercer, unblooded human male of uncertain intelligence, offer your strength to the Fatha blooded human male of uncertain intelligence, offer your strength to the P. First blade, yep, all the strength I got, which is mostly sarcasm and decent reflexes. She blinked once. A flicker of amusement in her eyes. Do you submit to trial, to tribulation, to bush beating? Wait, hold. On, that's a real thing? Yes, you'll see. She raised a ceremonial blade carved from dark crystal. If you wish to back out, she said, voice low, now is your final chance. I looked at her, really looked, at the warrior, the scars, the posture that had never known rest, the eyes that had only recently learned to soften. No chance, I said. You're terrifying and beautiful and make me feel like I'm falling off a cliff, but I want to see what's at the bottom. She stared at me. Just for a second. Then she nodded. The rites will begin, the announcer declared. Then the chaos began. A Valkeran rite is not a quiet affair. There was combat dancing. There was ceremonial headbutting. I lost. There was a ritual offering where I was expected to catch a flaming spear thrown from the balcony while reciting my intentions. I caught it with my face. The crowd cheered, and yes, there was bush beating. It involved a genetically engineered shrub that tried to bite me back. I was bleeding, sweating, and 2 minutes from collapsing when Zelana stepped forward and placed her hand on my shoulder. You have endured the rites, she said. Now comes the vow. I tried to stand straighter, but my ankle was twisted and one eyebrow was still singed. Repeat after me, she said. I, Jake Mercer, current disaster of the human race, offer my strength. Offer. What strength I've got left, my loyalty, my slightly bruised loyalty, and my heart. I paused, then I looked at her, and this time I didn't joke. And my heart, I said, voice quiet. Fully, even if it's scared, even if it's stupid. It's yours. Her eyes widened just slightly. She placed her hand over mine. Solana, first blade of the Valkera Empire. She hesitated. Then her voice softened. Offer not only my blade, but my burden. Not only my strength, but my silence. And I vow to make you laugh. Often. Especially when you are not supposed to. A collective gasp swept the room. Did she made a joke. Someone whispered. The ceremonial gong rang out once. Then again, the ritual was complete. We were mated, not legally, not politically, spiritually, and right then, in front of 1,000 armored warriors and several curious diplomats, she kissed me, not a gentle brush of lips. Not a polite peck, it was fire and fury and something dangerously close to forever. When she finally pulled back, I was breathless. My mate, she said, eyes still burning, is now bound to me. Someone threw a spear in celebration. It stuck in the wall beside my head. I didn't even flinch. Does this mean I get a raise? I asked. She smirked. No, but you will get a larger room. Bigger than the lava tub one? Yes, with fewer ceremonial weapons mounted above the bed. Double quotes, fewer? Not none. Good enough. We left the circle together, the crowd. Parting like shadow around flame. The mating ceremony was over. But I had the distinct feeling things were about to get a lot more dangerous, because now we weren't just flirting. Now we were us. The honeymoon lasted about 6 hours. Technically, it wasn't a honeymoon. There were no beaches, no fruity drinks with paper umbrellas, and definitely no privacy. There was just me, Zelana, and a looming political catastrophe dressed in obsidian. Battle regalia. I woke in our new chambers, larger than the old ones, sure, but still half full of relics, weapons. And what I was 90% sure was a preserved, enemy skull mounted above the meditation pool. Romantic. Zelana was already awake, standing shirtless in the center of the room, tightening the straps of her combat harness like she'd slept. With one eye open and the other on the next war. You're going somewhere? I asked, still groggy. She didn't look at me. There's been a message from the High War Council, she said. They've summoned me for a hearing. I will attend alone. I sat up. Why does that sound ominous? They believe I've compromised my station, diluted my bloodline, made the Empire vulnerable. I blinked. Because you kissed? Me? Because I mated you. She said it flatly, without shame, but I could see the tension in her jaw. The way her fingers flexed once, like they wanted to draw a blade on someone who wasn't in the room. I stood, walking toward her slowly. There. Angry, I said, because you chose someone unexpected. Untraditional, soft. She nodded once, and they're scared, I added. Because you did it without their permission. Her gaze finally met mine. That is exactly why they are dangerous. I reached for her hand. She let me. I should go with you. She shook. Her head. No. This is a room full of blades. You are not ready. A pause. Her hand squeezed mine. I am not sure I am ready. A chime sounded at the door. Formal. Cold. Her escort had arrived. I'll wait here, I said. Try not to die, she said softly. I smirked. Only if you come back. She left. The doors closed. And the silence that followed felt wrong, too quiet. Too final. The waiting was the worst part. I paced. I rearranged ceremonial blades. I stared at the lava fountain and wondered how many other humans had ended up here. Probably just me. Then the ship shook. Not metaphorically. Actually shook. I bolted. for the door, only to be intercepted by a small gray alien with big eyes and bad timing. "You must remain inside," it chirped. "This is a restricted security breach protocol." "What kind of breach?" I demanded. "An unauthorized boarding." "From within the Empire, that stopped me cold." "Internal coup?" The aide nodded, blinking, then whispered, "They came for her." Zela na. I didn't wait. I shoved past the aide, sprinted through glowing corridors, ignored shouts, ducked around corner sentries. My heart thundered in my chest. Every hallway I passed was in lockdown, red glyphs flashing warnings. Soldiers running in formation. Energy shields blocking off entire decks. I reached the council hall just in time to see the blast door detonate inward. Smoke, screams, and through the haze, a figure stood at the center of the chamber. Zela na. Bleeding. Surrounded. 5 elite warriors in ceremonial armor closed in around her. Honor guards turned executioners. One held a jagged glaive dripping with something dark. Another raised a plasma pike and spoke with venom. "You were warned. You broke the line. You brought weakness into the chain." Selana didn't flinch. My mate is not weakness. She moved like lightning. Her sword flashed, carving an arc through the nearest attacker's throat. Another lunged. She spun, elbowed him into the wall, drove her heel into his helmet until it cracked. But there were too many. I couldn't think. I moved. I grabbed the fallen glaive from the floor and ran in screaming. The third warrior turned to meet me. I did the dumbest, most human thing imaginable. I yelled, "You're late for your own dishonor duel," and swung the glaive like a baseball bat. Hit his side with a crunch. He stumbled. I didn't stop. I tackled the fourth, barely avoiding the tip of his dagger, then tripped over my own sandal again and landed on top of him. There was a lot of screaming. Only some of it was mine. The fifth turned toward me, weapon raised. "Jake!" Selana shouted. She threw her sword. It sailed through the air and impaled the fifth attacker through the chest. Silence. Zela na limped over to me, panting, bleeding from a gash across her ribs. She stared at me like she just watched gravity. "Take a coffee break. You fought," she said. I winced. "Yeah, badly. But you know, with gusto. You bled." "Yeah, I think I tore something too." She looked down at me. And then, in the middle of the chaos, the bodies, the wrecked council chamber, she knelt. And bowed. To me. "I have taken many wounds," she said, "but never one earned beside someone who would not let me fall." The few remaining spectators watched in stunned silence. I blinked through the pain. "Are you proposing again?" "Because I didn't bring the sexy robes this time." "You are not a consort," she said. "Not just a mate. You are my equal, my partner." I smiled. "Does this mean I get to sit on your war throne?" "No," she said. "But you may polish it." That earned a laugh from somewhere in the rafters. The tension broke. Soldiers stood down. Healers rushed in. As I was patched up with something that smelled like citrus and burnt iron, I realized something terrifying. I wasn't just surviving. I was becoming part of it. The Empire. Her life. This madness. And for the first time, it felt like I belonged. I didn't sleep that night. Not because I was in pain, though. I definitely was. My ribs were bruised. My shoulder was dislocated. And I had a plasma burn on my leg in the shape of what I really hope was a ceremonial glyph and not an ancient Valkeran curse word. But it wasn't the pain that kept me up. It was the silence. The kind of silence that comes after the shouting, after the clash of blades and the screams of traitors. The kind of silence that sits in your chest like a weight. Asking, "What now?" Zelana stood at the far end of our quarters, staring out the viewing port. Stars drifted by, reflected in the curve of her jaw and the burnished scars along her spine. She wasn't in armor. Just a loose wrap around her waist and a quiet storm in her eyes. I watched her, not wanting to break the moment, but I had to. Say. It, I said quietly. She didn't turn. The council wants my resignation. I sat up, wincing. Because of me. No, she said. Because of us. I stood, slowly. My muscles screamed. My leg wobbled. But I crossed the room anyway. You saved my life, I said. I should be the one they're afraid of. I'm the unpredictable element, remember? She turned now, just slightly. Her face unreadable. They fear what I've become with you beside me. I swallowed. And what do you fear? Silence. Then she looked at me, no armor, no mask, no rank, just Zelana. I fear losing the part of myself you've awakened. I stepped closer. I fear becoming that part. Her hand reached for mine. I don't know how to be yours and still be theirs. She whispered. You don't have to be theirs anymore. Her gaze flickered. You would ask me to walk away from the Empire? No, I said, stepping into her space, into her warmth. I'd ask you to walk with me, to build something new. She stared at me, heart in her throat, fire in her eyes. I don't know who I am without war. I smiled. Then maybe it's time you found out. There was a long pause, then, quietly, the ship is still yours. The warriors loyal to you. Enough. Of them, she said, but not all. Then the rest can watch, I said, as we rewrite everything. She pulled me into her arms, slow and deliberate. Her touch was no longer a command. It was a choice. A promise. You make me weak, she said into my neck. No, I whispered back. I make you human, she laughed. A real one. Raw and stunned and free. 1 month later, the Valkera entered neutral orbit over a newly claimed joint colony world. Zelana stepped out first armored not in traditional Valkeran regalia, but in a custom-forged suit with human elements embedded in its plating. Her war braid coiled into a tighter knot. Her blade was sheathed, but ready. I followed, still awkward, still sarcastic, but wearing a newly minted diplomatic partner sash that made me look like I was competing in a very aggressive Interstellar beauty pageant. The crowd stared. Alien dignitaries whispered. Human officials fumbled their welcome notes. Zelana didn't flinch. I stepped forward. Yeah, hi. Jake Mercer. I used to load crates. Now I help negotiate treaties with my terrifyingly beautiful wife. So if anyone has snacks, coffee, or a strong sedative, that'd be great. Someone laughed. The tension broke. The universe, for the first time, began to change. Later that night, in our new quarters neutral zone, shared bed, no weapons mounted. Above the headboard, I watched her sleep. She never used to let herself sleep deeply. But now, wrapped around me, her body finally relaxed. She murmured something in Valkeran. I translated it the next morning. It meant, my shield. People still whisper about us. The first blade and the cargo tech. The war goddess and the disaster. Human. But on the wall above our bed, hung with pride, is the first weapon I ever forged. Ugly, uneven, imperfect, but still standing. Like us. Like love. Forged in fire.